Hello guys and welcome back. So now it's time to create the landing screen. Okay, we don't want to always, when we start the application, to go to the profile screen. Okay, yeah, so let's create the landing screen. So one other thing, you may wonder why there's still no our image. We still don't show our image here, even if in Firestore we have our image here. So that's only because we are not putting the image URL here. Okay, so we cannot put it here because currently the user model is, we know that at this point we did not initialize any user model. Okay, so that is what we will sort out in a landing screen. Okay, so let's quickly create the landing screen so that here on the initial route we point it to the landing screen, and then the landing screen will do all the checks, and then it will navigate to the appropriate screen, to the correct screen, whether the user is authenticated, whether the user has got data in Firestore and all that. Okay, so let's quickly create that landing screen. Okay, so for that we're going to go in the screen here. Let's right click, new file, and then here I'm gonna name it landing screen. Okay, so this is the screen that we'll start with. So let's create the stateful widget landing screen. So now in the landing screen here, we're going to have some checks. First, here we just want to return a scaffold. Okay, scaffold with a body of the center. Now instead of the center here, actually the center, the child, we're going to just put the circular progress indicator, just like this. Okay, and then put the constant. That's all we can put here. We just want to show the loading while in the background we're doing the checks. Okay, now here let's do the checks. So the first, we want to check the authentication. Okay, so void check authentication. That's how I'm going to call this method. Okay, now here, first of all, let's make sure the widget has initialized before we do any checks. So for that we need to do widget flutter binding that add post from widget binding instance that add post from callback. Okay, now inside here, that's when we'll do the check. So first let's initialize the provider final user auth provider. This is going to, we're going to read from the provider like this. So this is the same thing we're doing. This is how we call the provider. Okay, provider of context, user provider context dot listen to false. So this is similarly the same way we can do. If we cut this, we can say something like context dot read user auth provider. This is the same like that previous code. Okay, so here we can also do watch, which means we are watching for the changes. Okay, but the way it is like this, we are just reading once. But if we set listen to true, is like the same way we say watch. Okay, now this is equivalent to read to watch, and then if we say this to false, is equivalent to read. We're only reading it once. So let's use this one. Okay, now after this we need to get the Firebase auth. Okay, so final what I'm going to say here is let's initialize it Firebase auth, and then auth is going to be because Firebase dot instance. So I'm just gonna import all of these and then remove that. Okay, and then we have the auth here, and then here we need to check the authentication. Okay, so let's create the method in a user auth provider that checks the authentication. But before that, let's also create an enum that will set what authentication state the user is in. Okay, so let's quickly do that. We go in the utilities here, new file, and then let's create an enum. So we're going to call this enums dot. So here, that's where we are going to put our enums. Okay, so the first one is going, let's name it as maybe auth state. Okay, enum, let's call it auth state. Okay, so we have sign out, sign in, a user created. No, I don't want something like this. What I want is I'm gonna say authenticated, and then the next one is I'm gonna say authenticated but not data. Okay, authenticated, not data, and then I'm gonna say maybe now unauthenticated. Okay, unauthenticated, and then the other one we can just say error. Okay, error. Okay, so I'm gonna have this enum like this, the auth state enum, which we will set if the user is authenticated, if he's authenticated but no data is saved in Firestore, and then if he's unauthenticated or if it's an error. Okay, so great, we have that enum. Let's go ahead and save it. And then the next thing is to create a method to check if the user is authenticated in Firestore. So for that, we need to go in a user auth provider, and then let's see where we are going to create that method. Okay, maybe just down here. So this is going to be check authentication. Okay, check authentication state. So future, here I'm going to return that enum that I've created. Okay, auth state, auth. Okay, what did I call that enum? I think it's auth state. Yeah, we just need to import it, auth state, and then check auth state. All right, like that. And then here, let's require something. So we are going to require a string, which is a UID. So let's put this as nullable. Okay, now inside here, we know that we want, okay, first let's put the bracket there. Then let's delete that. Then this is going to be nullable. So let's import our enum here. So let's wrap this into the try catch block. Okay, of course we can copy this. So where's the error? Okay, let's remove that, and then inside here, let's start doing our checks. Okay, so first let's check if UID does not equal to now. Okay, let's see the completion that has happened here. So this is not how we are going to check. Let's do our own check. So if UID does not equal to now, what I would do is let's remove all of this and then remove all of this. So I'm going to create a method to check if the user exists. Okay, so let's remove this, and then here this is going to be a boolean. Okay, bool, which is nullable, and then let's say user exists. So this is, will only check if the user exists in Firestore. Okay, so this is going to be equals to await. Let's create that method of check user exist in Firestore. Okay, then we're going to pass the UID. Now first of all, let's maybe create this method. Okay, so down here, let's do check if user exists in Firestore. This is going to be a future method with a boolean which is nullable. Okay, so first of all, let's copy that and paste it here, and then let's close it with that bracket. Okay, so this method, first inside here, what we'll do is okay, let's see if it's doing it. Snapshot await users collection. It's going to go into users collection, and then it's gonna check its get, and then if snapshot exists, is going to equal to return true, else it will return false. Okay, it looks like it's simply doing it. Okay, so but what's the problem here? So okay, let me remove this and do it like that, and then here let me just return false. Okay, I have to return it after the log. Return false. Okay, so if this is going to be returned here, whatever, if a snapshot exists, is going to return true, else it's going to return false. Okay, it's as simple as this. Okay, so let's go back. Now here we are returning a boolean. We know if the user exists, we are returning that. Okay, so now here, after we check if the user exists, now we need to check. Okay, check if user exists. So if user exists, what do we want to do? If the user exists, we want to get the user data from Firestore, and then we are going to return that is authenticated. Okay, so if the user exists, we are going to return the data, and then we are going to say that is authenticated. If the user does not exist, if it is equals to false. So this is why I wanted to say to add the to say that it can be now, because I want to also check if it's the error. But anyway, we can just check these two. Okay, so else, if it does not exist, then we are going to return unauthenticated. Okay, we are going to return authenticated but no data. All right, so here we're going to return authenticated but not data, which means because we are checking if this is not now. Okay, now if it is now, which means is unauthenticated. Okay, so if this is not now, this is what is happening. If it is now, in the else, we are going to return is unauthenticated. Okay, great. So which means there's no need to return the error here. Okay, so now in here, if the user exists here, we need to do more. Okay, if the user exists, we need to get the data from Firestore and then initialize the local user model. If there's no data, we need to put the initial data. So here, let's do await. What is that? We're going to say set user model. Set model, and then the model that we're going to set is so let's see this method. Okay, it does not require anything. where's that set? So here we want to get the initial model, so we're going to call it from user model dot initialize. Okay, user model dot initial model, and then we want to put just the UID here. Okay, which is what we are passing. Okay, so now we know that we are initializing the user model here. Next, here, if the user exists, here is where we need to do more. Okay, so if the user exists here, let's see what we want to do. So here we want to check the to get the user data from Firestore. So here, if the user exists, we want to say get user data, and I think we already create this method, get user data from Firestore. So let's await. What did we call that method? Get user data. Okay, so did we create? Yeah, this one. Yeah, great. So now you can see that if we get the user data from Firestore, the user model we are setting here, okay, to that one from Firestore. Okay, great. So we have created all of these things already. Okay, so now, which means here in the check authentication, so what's the problem? Because here we are returning is authenticated, here we are returning is authenticated, but on the error here we are let's return is unauthenticated. Okay, and then that's it. So this is going to be our method to check authentication. I hope I wasn't too fast. First, we check if the user exists, which is this method. It's going to return the boolean. Okay, so if the user exists, we are going to get the data from Firestore, and then we return that is authenticated. Okay, now we can go back to the landing screen, and then here we are going to continue now down after here. So here we're going to get the auth state, and then here we're going to go inside our user provider. We're going to say await. So this should be asynchronous. Actually, here, asynchronous await user auth provider dot check authentication. Okay, so why did we call it check authentication? Let's go check auth state. Okay, check auth state, and then here what we need to pass is a, so let's see, is it required? The UID is required. Okay, so we want to pass the UID, and then here we'll pass this. So what's the problem here? Okay, so yeah, this auth state is a class for Firebase, so we need to change our enum. Okay, so let's go to the enum, and then let's change it to, what can we name this? Let's say auth status. Yeah, name it auth status, and then here let's say auth status, auth status, auth status, auth status, auth status. Then if we come here, this, let's get auth status, not from Firebase UI. Okay, and then let's import our auth status from there. Great. So now we're gonna pass this like this. So here let's put the question mark so that it's nullable. Okay, great. Now here we are checking the auth state. Right after we check the auth state, we need to navigate. Okay, navigate. Now in the navigation we need to pass the, let's name this auth status as well. Pass the auth status and then auth status. Okay, Great. Now in this navigation, this is what it will navigate depending on the auth status that we got here. So down here now we need to do void navigate. So here now it will depend on the auth status. Okay, so let's do a switch statement here. So let's remove all of this, and then we're just gonna call switch auth status. If auth status dot is authenticated, we don't want to navigate to profile. Here we need to navigate to constants dot home route. So if is authenticated but not data. So what is this? This is unauthenticated. Yeah, unauthenticated. We want to go to constants dot sign in route. Else is authenticated with no data. So authenticated with no data, this is where now we want to go to profile screen so that they can go and fill in their profile. Okay, constants dot profile route. Here they are going to fill in their profile now, I mean their details. So let's get now the last case, which is error. This one now we are going again to navigate to sign in screen, and then we can just break. Then we can also have the default, which is the sign in screen, but I think it's fine like this. Okay, so this is how we are going to navigate now. All right, so on navigation here, on error here, maybe we can also just put the snack bar of the error. So let's do global widgets, then context dot show snack bar. The message we can say error checking authentication. Okay, error checking authentication, please try again. Okay, then maybe we can say the background colors dot red. Okay, something like this. And then just like this, we're done with this landing screen. Here up here we just need to call init state, and then init state here, let's check for authentication. Okay, check authentication. Great. Just like this, we are done with the landing screen. Okay, now all we need to do is to go in the main.dat, and then here instead of calling this, we're gonna call our constants dot landing route, and then we don't have it here, so we're gonna call constants dot the landing route, which returns a landing screen, just like that. Okay, now if we hold reload, we are going to go to the landing screen. Okay, and then the data is going to be populated. Okay, so let's see if we hold reload. It needs to take us to the landing screen, and then it like this, and then it's checking, and then it has taken us to the home screen. Great. Why it has taken us to the home screen? Because we already have data in Firestore. Okay, so now the other thing to do is so that you know that we are reading the correct data, let's show the profile, our image here, so that we can show our image, and then maybe even here we can show our name, so that we can go back to the profile, and then now you can see that we are going to have the correct data. All right, so now the other thing is in the profile screen here, we can let's go to auth screen. In the profile screen here, on the image here, now we can get the image URL, and then we can get it from this. Okay, we can get it from the user module, because whenever it starts, so let's add the now check here, because whenever the landing screen starts here, before it navigates everywhere, if it's checking authentication, if the user is authenticated, if it gets the user data, it's setting the data to that user module, so which means it is no longer now. Okay, now also here, if it's not authenticated, it's again setting the data as initial module, so it's setting the initial module here. Okay, all right, so we've forgotten one thing here. Let's see, so it's setting the initial module, which should also be equal to the user module. So here we need to call user module, and then we need to do that. Okay, so since we cannot reference it here, let's just remove it. So let's go through this again. So here it's setting the initial module to, I mean, what I wanted to do, we already done. So here, this method set module, it's here. Okay, so we are setting the initial module. Okay, so here always when you get to the profile, this will no longer be now. Okay, so but we can still leave this check here, but it will no longer be now, because now in the landing screen everywhere is getting it's getting set. Okay, yeah, so that's it for this video. In the next one, we are going to put our user image here and maybe show our name, and then run this text, and then that will conclude the email sign in. We're gonna move on to the phone authentication from there. All right, okay, maybe before we end this video, let's quickly display our data here, so that in the next one we get started with the phone auth. Okay, so what we have to do is it's pretty simple. In the home screen, let's go in the home screen. We can now close what we don't need here. So in the home screen, let's put, okay, we have an app bar here, and then in the home screen we don't really need a back button, but all right, let's just put a leading here. Okay, so the leading, let's put an icon. Okay, so constant of icon.home. Okay, and then the title, maybe let's center it to true. On iOS is automatically centered. Now here let's put an action. So in the action, what we want to do is just put a gesture detector, just a detector, and then here on top we want to navigate to profile screen. Okay, navigator dot push replacement, and we want to call what dot push named. Okay, here we want to say constant dot so let's import this dot profile route. All right, great. Now for the child, we want to put our child, which is going to be sorry, this is going to come after that. The child, which is going to be the user image avatar. Okay, now this user image avatar, we can now put the radius, and then the on press, we don't need to put this because this is going to be a view only. Okay, let's not put that. What we want to put is sorry, this is up to here. What we want to put is the image URL. So the image URL is going to come from user provider. So now the home screen also we can read from the provider. Okay, so let's come up here and then let's say final user auth provider. This is going to be, let's just say context.read user auth provider. Let's import that. Okay, now here we have to say user auth provider dot user model. Let's put a now check here. All right, so because we know the time that we get here, this is not going to be now. Okay, we've already done the checks in our landing screen. Okay, so this is also going to be view only is going to be true. Okay, just like this. So now when we click here, we go to the profile screen, and then also here maybe we can put the name now. Okay, so what we can do here is first let's remove this constant keyword, and then here let's say welcome. We can put the string interpolation here, and then we're gonna say the name there. Let's just put some style so that it's a bit bigger. Style which comes from text style, and then font size, let's have something like 24, and then font weight, we're gonna have it bold, and then let's put the constant keyword. All right, just like that. We can save. Now you can see we are getting the data from Firestore. So what we can do is also here maybe just put some padding. Let's do 4. Then if we hot reload, now you can see that we are getting the data from Firestore. Like if we hot reload again, it's going to start from the landing screen, and then it's going to get the data from Firestore, and then it's going to put it here, and then to load it to the user model, and then it will show it here. Okay, it's taking time. Let me stop it and run it again. Okay, so while it's running again, if you go to the auth screen here in the profile, because we are just showing this in the profile. Okay, I've also put this one, the user image. Now in the profile you will be able to see the image if it's there. Okay, because we know, I actually explained this in the previous video, that the time we are getting here, this is not now. Okay, at the time we are okay, what is the problem now? So this is the home screen. Okay, so it's saying that it's now. So what we can do to fix this is just to allow it to be now, and then we can put an empty string if it's like that. So let's hot reload. Because the time that it's loading, maybe this data it's not there. Okay, so to fix it, we just simply check if this is now, we'll put an empty string. Okay, then that solves it. So if this takes time, I'm gonna stop it again and then just run it. Okay, so let's just wait for it. All right, now it has moved to the name, so we simply going to do the same. I'm gonna do it like that, and then put an empty string like that. Okay, so let's stop it and then run it again. Okay, So let's see if we go to the landing screen, if it's authenticated here, check authentication, and then it's getting the user data, and then yeah, everything should work just fine here. Okay, you can see that now we have the data. The reason why we are getting now check on a now value is because this screen was started before the data was set. Okay, great. So now that the data is set, if we click here, we have set that it takes us to the profile screen. So let's give it a try. Now let's click here. You can see that in the profile screen, even here, the data is updated. Great. So that's it. We are with that, we are completely done with the email sign in. Now we can update the data, and then we are going to the screen, and then we can go back to the profile and then update. Even if when we update here, everything updates. Okay, so that's great. Now in the next one, we are going to get started with a phone authentication. All right, so thank you guys for joining this course, and I appreciate you a lot.